This is Real Talk. We discuss important issues impacting our world and how we as humanity can come together, overcome our obstacles, and move forward towards a bright and beautiful future together. I'm Sunny Galt. I am a messenger with United Network News. You can check us out at unitednetwork.tv. On today's Real Talk, we are talking about genetic brain dominance profiling. I know it's a big word, multiple words. You probably heard of people being either right brain or left brain, right? Well, did you know you also have a dominant side for your eyes, your ears, your hands, as well as your legs? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Our guest today on Real Talk is Noeline Levinson, and this type of genetic profiling is something she does for her clients. And she also recently did this for me as well as my daughters, which I'm sure is going to come up in today's conversation. So Noeline, thank you so much for being on Real Talk today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here.
So Noeline, we hear about people being left brain or right brain, and sometimes we're given vague information about what that means. In fact, someone just said that to me today. Oh, you're more right brain or whatever. And I instantly thought of you. But there's so much more to this story. So how did you first find out about this technique?
Well, actually, it's an interesting story because I actually was dyslexic or am dyslexic. Mm-hmm. And I struggled at school. I absolutely struggled. And I even have a memory of my headmaster standing in front of my desk talking to my teacher saying, you know, she has dyslexia, but she'll be all right. She'll muddle through. And thinking back to that now, I think, gosh, we've come a long way to be able to help people. Yeah. And I struggled and after school, my friends went off to university, but I couldn't. And I actually found myself studying in Paris, doing something called the Tomatis sound therapy with Tomatis. I was very privileged. And his work really helped me enormously. I didn't understand how it had helped me, but it did. I was able to read. I was able to go to university and study. And when I came across this genetic brain dominance profiling, once I had done that, it was like the piece of the puzzle that I had been missing. It really explained to me how my brain was wired and how the sound therapy had managed to help integrate the brain enough for me to be able to read, like my friends had read. And I will never be like that because, as this says, it's genetic. It's a blueprint. You're born with it, you die with it. It doesn't change throughout your life. And it's very much like your genetic inheritance of your color of your hair, the color of your eyes. This is a genetic blueprint of how your brain is wired. And what makes it unique compared to all the other personality profiling out there, which there are many, there's Myers-Briggs, and today very popular now is the human design. These are wonderful personality profiles, but this one is unique because it tells you what happens to you under stress. Because you're right, we're not just a left and right brain hemisphere, we're a whole lot more than that. And it's what part of your brain is dominant for your listening, what part of your brain is dominant for the way you read. And how is that tracking? How is that reading tracking? So, and how you communicate and how you take action. And what happens to those things when you're stressed? Because we all know that when we're relaxed, life is marvelous. And then when you're stressed, everything can go to hell. And for some people, they don't. And for others, it really goes seriously bad. So why? Why are we so different? And it's because part of your brain actually switches off under stress. So what do we call stress? Well, stress is when your heart rate is elevated. So it can either be anger or panic or fear, even overexcitement. And in that moment, your non-dominant side of your brain actually switches off. And in that moment, we're just not ourselves. And often we'll walk away and go, oh, why did I say this? Or I could have said that, or I could have done this, or why didn't I do that? And so we can really get to understand ourselves under stress. Can I give you an example of this that I found so often? Yeah. I did a lot of profiling in companies, and in the industry of advertising, people are put under a lot of pressure for deadlines. So they get hired because they're wonderful and creative, and suddenly they hit a deadline and that creativity is gone. And they're completely drawn a blank. And they can't seem to get past that. And so then they go and they have a drink, and of course alcohol and drugs are fantastic because they switch your brain back on. because they relax you, right? And so once you're back and you're relaxed, right, I'm back on track. I can figure this out. Yeah. Which is why we see such a high incidence of drug and alcohol abuse in that industry, because they're not understanding that under stress they're actually not going to function. And so when we understand that, it's so huge in our understanding of ourselves and our acceptance of ourselves. Going back to my own story, when I understood that this made me different, not stupid, because I'd grown up in a household of people who read prolifically. Yeah. And I was really the black sheep of the family, because I just wasn't interested in reading. And they constantly brought it up. Why don't you want to read? What's the matter with you? So I grew up feeling like there was something wrong with me. And there wasn't something wrong with me. I was just as clever, if not more than they were. But I was different. And often when people come to see me, they walk away feeling like, wow, I'm okay. I'm just different. I do things differently. And I think that's huge. I love that about this work, because people start to like themselves and understand themselves and see their gifts. And yes, they're not like everybody else, but we are trained to try and be like everybody else. And I think our schooling system really does us a disservice, because if we're not, doing like everybody else is doing, then there's something wrong with you. What's happening? And that's something I really want to change.
Have you tried, Noeline, to reach out to schools or to, you mentioned, businesses? Like, who's taking advantage of this now? Is this still kind of like the world's best kept secret, or do you find more people finding out about this? Because I was thinking, oh my goodness, this could be so helpful in schools if teachers knew not just about dyslexia, but about things in general and how to communicate with their students. But do you find there's pushback on this, or what's been your experience?
Yeah, so I have worked in schools. You can hear that I'm South African, so I did work in South Africa in schools and in businesses. I have managed to get into a school here in New Zealand. And while there was funding, it seemed to be okay, but once the funding dried up, then it disappeared. And it's unfortunate, because those teachers found it enormously useful. And in fact, the one level, and the first level, they had a lot of 5-year-olds in it, they won an award for doing having the best outcomes for those children, because they really understood those children. They understood what they needed, and they could really make that work. So yes, the only really thing I can say to this question is that I have approached the Minister of Education in the country that I live in, which is New Zealand. And here's the glitch. The glitch is that I get your profile through muscle checking, through kinesiology. And in fact, even more weird and woo-woo is that if I'm doing it, on Zoom with you, I'm actually doing it with muscle checking, but I'm also checking it with a pendulum. And so that would really send it out the park. But the kinesiology already was just a step too far for the Minister of Education. And although he was blown away by his own profile, he just couldn't get past the kinesiology aspect. That was a bridge too far, so he threw the baby out with the bathwater, which was really sad. But absolutely, I really want to train people so that this can be not the best kept secret, and that it can really be out there. Teachers need to understand how to do this. There was a school in South Africa that did this for all their students. As they came into the school, it was part of their entrance. They were profiled. A little picture of their profile was put on the desk of the child, so that the teacher, when they were having difficulties, could go up and look at it and go, I know what you need. Let's do this differently. Yeah. Let me show you this. Instead of, another school I went to humiliated children who were behaving badly in their terms, and put them outside in the corridor so that people could see them. So there was shaming these poor children. It was completely heartbreaking for me. And lots of other things that one saw that was heartbreaking. But making children anxious, traumatizing children, is not going to help their functionality at all.
Yeah, it's going to create that stress that you were talking about.
Exactly.
And then they're not going to function.
Exactly right. Absolutely right. I was in South Africa. I was called into a township where they were having difficulty with children. And I mean, a 6-year-old is looking after a 2-month-old baby. There's no learning capacity there. Other children are sleeping in doorways. Their families are no longer alive. And if they have a kind of profile that switches off completely, they look like the deer in the headlights, and they're not functioning. And you can't teach them because they're just not functioning. And what happens with post-traumatic stress disorder is when you switch into your profile, you're not actually switching out of it. All of us who are switching in and out, easily. You get frightened, but then your adrenaline calms down and you're not frightened anymore, your heart rate, and you switch back up. Post-traumatic stress disorder, they switch in and they can't switch out. And if they are somebody who completely doesn't cope with stress, then you've got somebody who's just not functioning at all. And it's difficult to reach them unless you're understanding what it is you're seeing and you respond to that instead of the behavior. And that's kind of where we really need to start going with adults and children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking about just in my own case, having this information helped me to understand myself better. And like you said, why do I do some of the quirky things that I do? If I'm nervous or this happens, why can't I remember anything? Things like that, that I had questions about really my whole life. This profile helped me to understand myself better. And then also to know, okay, if I'm under stress, this is probably how I'm going to behave. But then also to encourage myself, okay, how do we not maintain the stress, but how do we stress less? Because one of the things I found out in my own profile, which we'll talk a little bit more later, is that you said I'm pretty even right and left brain. So if I'm not completely stressed out, then I function really, really well. And so that was an incentive to me to be like, yeah, Sunny, don't stress because you're really effective, not as effective when you are stressed out. And when you're not, you're really on it. And that was a huge encouragement to me. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about how the profiling works. I know you say you did some muscle testing. First of all, for those who aren't familiar with the concept of muscle testing, can you explain what that is?
Oh, dear.
I know.
Oh, dear. Okay. It's called biofeedback. Basically, you're asking the body's unconscious mind for the answers because basically you know everything you need to know. And so I can't ask you consciously, are you left or right brain? How the heck would you know that?
Right.
And actually, the truth is that you should be using your whole brain. So basically, you really should be both. Mm-hmm. It's more about what's dominant and not dominant so that we know what switches off and doesn't switch off under stress. So you couldn't answer these questions cognitively. This is not in your consciousness. So we're asking your unconsciousness by doing the muscle checking. And basically, if you were in front of me, I'd have my hand on your arm and my other hand on your shoulder, and I'd be putting pressure on your arm and asking your body the questions. And you wouldn't be answering me, your body would be answering me in either a yes or no response. I'm not talking to the devil, not talking to God, I'm talking to you. Mm-hmm. And really, as some people understand this, some people don't, but it's, the body actually gives me all the information I need. And so I can draw it up and go from there.
And when you're doing the profile, I know when we did it together, it was done remotely, like on Zoom or something like that. So can it be done? Obviously, it can be done remotely and in person as well?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, it can be.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So what typically happens? Like, I mean, I kind of know the secrets already because I've been through this and done this already with you. But for people who aren't familiar with this, so you meet with the person, whether it's, virtual or, in person, you do some muscle testing. So you're just asking the body, okay, are you right brain, left brain? Like, walk me through this a little bit. How does it work?
Yeah. So basically I'm saying to you are when you do muscle checking, you always ask in the positive. Because your brain doesn't actually understand negatives, oddly enough, which is why don't drink and drive doesn't work, because the brain sees drink and drive, doesn't see the word don't. So you can't ask a question in the negative. You're right brain dominant, you're left brain dominant. Your body's going to say yes or no. And so I then fill in the form. I've got a little picture that I fill in because I'm picture orientated. So I do it in a picture format, and then I start giving you the feedback. Basically, I can start to see your personality. So we start going through the personality things, the kind of things that you seem to be doing. But here's the thing that's really important to remember. You are more in your profile as a child because you haven't had the years of brain integration to actually get to using your whole brain. Mm-hmm. So you're very much in your profile as a child. So often I would say to you, as a child, did you do? And you go, oh, yeah, I did that. Yeah, that's something I did as a child. Right. It's not something that you would be always doing because really by now you should really be using your whole brain. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we look at the fact that it's also just under stress that this switches on like a default setting on a computer. It's not something you should really be doing and acting in all the time, right? Because then there really is a problem. So once we start to ascertain that, we start to look at how is this, and does this happen to you under stress? So when you're under stress, can you do more than one thing at a time? Well, no, you can't, for you personally. Mm-hmm. But I mean, so it's, and then you go, I'm fine when I'm relaxed, but the minute I'm stressed, I've got to write a list, and we start to uncover all of those sorts of things. And then right at the end, once we've gone through all the different attributes, we see, right now, let's see what doesn't work or does work under stress. And then we can really, really begin to uncover what's really been going on. And honestly, it's like a light that switches on in people. I love it because I can see people going, okay, that makes so much sense. Now I understand why I've done what I've done and why I behave like I do. I get very, very stressed. My ability to speak, oddly enough, doesn't work under stress. And when I was a lot younger, I used to have to do a lot of radio interviews. And the first few minutes was gobbledygook because my heart was pounding. And my husband used to say, you really have to do something about this. It's really bad. And so, okay. And so I really prepared those first few minutes. And I think that's the next thing that's important is that we have to create some strategies. Yeah? Yeah. So how do you get over this? How do we plan this better for you? So some people have suggested meditation. Some people have suggested, pillow fighting. There are a lot of different strategies that are available. And that's the last step. So this is what we've got. How do we overcome it? Because the idea is to become whole brain thinking. It's not to be a slave to this, right? And brain integration is the key here. And which is why things like brain gym works. It's why exercise works. It's why there are a number of things that help us to integrate our brain. And that's really important. So we want to raise our resilience and our resistance to stress. We don't want to be a slave to this. We need to understand it so that we can overcome it.
Well, and hopefully moving forward, we're going to have less of that stress. I mean, stress is always going to be there, right? But we as humanity have, on purpose been totally stressed out in a million different ways, right? So then you're functioning more and more on just, a certain side of your brain and, you're not nearly as effective as you could be, which I'm sure was intentional. But now we need to bring that back, right? Become a whole human again and function.
And thrive.
And thrive and function in the way we're supposed to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Noeline, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to review the results of the profiling Noeline recently did with me, and we're going to break down what those results were. Hello and welcome to United Network News. I'm Sunny Galt. Now let's check in with our ground command Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. And she has her whiteboard. Hi, Kim.
Thank you.
Remember, if it's going to be, it's up to me. It's up to all of us to come together. I'm Sunny Galt. Join us Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the Real News. Welcome back to Real Talk. Before the break, we were learning all about genetic brain dominance profiling and how the results can be used. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Noeline offered to do a profile for me and my daughters. So if you don't already know, I have two daughters. They're 9-year-old girls. They're identical twins. And at the time, we were having some issues. And honestly, I really didn't know what to do because I felt like no matter what I said, no matter what I did, I could not get through to my girls. Now, because of the information I learned through their profiles and also my own and knowing how I deal with stress, I was able to communicate with them differently and ease the situation. And that's why Noeline is here today, because I feel like you guys all need to know this as well. The results explain quirks and things about myself that I never understood before, as well as things my girls were going through. And it really just helped me moving forward so I can be the best parent for them I can possibly be. So, Noeline, just to give everyone an example, I would love to go through my profile. Obviously, I've given you permission to do this. I'm totally fine with that because I think actually seeing someone's profile and going through will give people a better idea of how they might be able to use this. So I'm going to kind of hand this over to you. I'll ask some questions here and there, but let's kind of go through what a profile looks like.
Okay, so for you, Sunny, you left brain dominant. That is your dominant processor. Mm-hmm. So you predominantly are someone who is a perfectionist.
Okay.
You like to get stuff right. It's really important to you. And the other thing that's really important is that you like to do one thing at a time, particularly when you're stressed. Mm-hmm. So if 20 things were coming at you, you'd kind of go, hang on, wait, stop the bus, wait. Now we're gonna do this first. This is the most important thing. We'll do this after that. And that's really, really important for us to know because this is going to come up under stress. We need to know this is how you cope best.
Right.
So I'm going to just change it ever so slightly because often I see children in this position and the parents have said to them, go brush your teeth, go brush your hair, go pack your bag for school. And then the parent finds the child in the bathroom. They kind of understood that was where they had to go, but they lost all the other bits of information because of the panic of the rush of we have to get ready. And then they didn't process all the rest of that information. And then the mother says, what are you doing? You weren't listening. No, I was listening. I just couldn't process so many instructions in one go. So when I say to those mums, okay, make us life easy. This is your child. This is how they listen. This is how they process. One instruction, go brush your teeth. Done. Easy. Right. Go brush your hair. Easy. Done. And life you take out all the fights of that early morning pressure cooker, which is just always impossible. So lots of mums have come back and gone, that was the most important thing I ever learned. We just don't fight anymore in the morning because I understand how to give instruction. So this just happens to pertain to you. But I'm just explaining that so many children get stuck in this and then they get screamed at, which of course then switches them into their profile. Mm-hmm. Some of them would then completely switch off. So they just look stunned. Now you're thinking, you just want to shake them. No, you go back, stop. You're not doing it right.
Yeah, and I think this is so important to bring up, Noeline, because some people may view that as, I gave you the information. Why can't you just do it? Because they would be able to handle that, right? And they think everybody should be able to. And so it's not a matter of being stupid or not being, it's just how your brain is wired. It's not that they don't want to do. I've got some kids that, fall into this category. It's probably not that they don't want to do what I'm telling them to do and they're not willing to do it. It's that the way I'm presenting it, it's a bit confusing. It's a bit overwhelming for them. And we don't want to get into that stress zone. So it's real important.
It really is important. And Sunny, just to segue slightly, this is literally, my tagline is, if you have a brain, this is important to know because it literally is across the board. And I remember being in a company once and the boss is an A-type personality. She'll work till midnight. And everybody thinks that everybody thinks like they do. And if they don't, there must be something wrong with them. Right? Yeah. Wrong. Okay. And the secretary was just not that profile. But the secretary felt guilty leaving at 4:30 because her boss was still there. And I said, please don't try to be your boss. You can't. Forget it. Go home to your family. that's the time you finish.
Yep.
And I had to say to the boss, you have to let her go at 4:30 because that's the time she finishes. You can go on until midnight, no problem. She can't. But what she was doing is she was working all these late hours, thinking that she was doing a good job. It didn't matter to the boss. Do you see? So communication, we don't get it. That made such a difference to those people. And so we go on. All right, let's go on because we'll get stuck on that. But I just feel so passionate about the fact that we need to understand each other.
Absolutely.
And this really helps us understand each other in a way that really nothing else does. Okay. So the other thing about you is that if you don't know what's coming next, you get to feel quite anxious. So you would, as a child, have said, what are we doing tomorrow? Where are we going? How's it going to be? And that's really important for us to understand, because as an adult, when you start behaving like that, it seems that you're trying to control me. So Noeline, where are you going? How long are you going to be? What are you, the police person here for me? No. If you own that information and say, actually, I just get so anxious if I don't have the information, it's actually my anxiety that is causing me to ask you this, not because I want to control you, but because I'm trying to control my own anxiety. That turns it around completely. You own it. You're not telling me what to do or trying to find out what I'm doing. You're trying to help yourself. The moment I hear that, I stop feeling controlled. And I go, okay, I'm going to the shops. I'll be an hour. Bye. Great. You're happy with that.
Yep.
You just desperately need that information. Yeah?
Yeah.
And so that's really another important thing, because people start to feel controlled, and it's actually not about that. It's about understanding where it's coming from, what's making that happen. Okay. You learn new concepts by looking for differences. You do not want to be told stuff you already know.
That's true.
Okay. And as a child, as my mother was telling you this, I already know that. Can you tell me something I don't already know? Okay.
That's probably why I'm in the news business. I would be the first to know everything. Don't tell me something I already know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But conversely, just so that you understand this, right-brainers learn through similarities. So they're going to ask you questions. Have I seen this before? Is it like this? Is it like that? And if you have a right-brainer in your life, which you do, you want to try and see that concept, that new concept, as a slippery fish for that individual. Because if they've never seen it before and they have no way of getting in, it'll feel like a slippery fish to them. And it'll take them a little bit longer to grasp it, So you're going to have to turn it around for them and say, oh, do you remember we did this and this? It's a little bit like that. Oh, okay, I'm in. I got it. Okay. They're looking for a way in. They're looking for something. Is it similar to this? Is it like that? They don't learn new concepts as quickly, which is why I feel personally that the left brainers have become kind of your academic people, because they learn so much faster. They don't need a point of reference. They can see something they've never seen before and they're in. Yeah. Makes sense. So, Facebook keeps doing this to me. They keep changing it every other day. I just learn the damn thing, then they change it. This does not fit my profile. Exactly. So it's, in the real world, we're doing this all the time. We're actually interacting and interfacing with our profile all the time. Okay, let's have a look and see. Yeah, you've got a strong sense of right and wrong. It either is or it isn't for you. Okay, you don't break the rules. You don't like others to break the rules. And these are your own personal rules. I'm not talking about universal rules. Right. But they're things that and you're the Minister of Justice and Fairness. So if you had siblings, you would have made sure that things were, given out justly, fairly. And if they hadn't, you would have definitely spoken up about it. Okay, it'll take too long to go through your entire profile, but I want to pick out some really important bits out of it. Sure. You're right eye dominant. And that right eye tracks from left to right, which happens to be, in your case, the way English is written. So you're a really good reader. So if I had to send you a letter and had a mistake in it, that mistake would jump out at you. Yep. But conversely, left-eyed people are tracking from right to left. And in English, that's the opposite way that English is written.
Mm-hmm.
And why this is so important to me is because I've heard so many teachers tell children, you're not allowed to use your finger to track where you're reading because that's for little children. Only little children are allowed to do that. No, that's not right. All left-eyed children have to be allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And not to be made to feel like they're little children or that they're less than or stupid or can't read. So they don't track in the correct direction. And so they lose themselves on the page. They can switch numbers and letters and because they're literally tracking in the other direction. So they don't see mistakes. They're writing or typing what's in their brain, not what's on the page. And when they read it back, it is what's in their brain, not what's on the page. So they don't see the mistake. And they could read it 10 times and not see the mistake. Particularly if they're in a rush or panicked. Then it's definitely not going to be seen. So conversely for you, this is an easy thing for you. You get it. If I write it to you, you've got it. It's in. And even under stress, it's in. Okay. Not so much with your listening. Under stress, not so good. And if you're walking out the house and I'm telling you something important, you go, send me an email, send me a text. I'm not listening right now. Okay. And so this is your strength. Your reading is your strength. But it just means that you could have learned anything on the planet. Anything that you wanted to learn, you could have. Anything that interested you, anything that fired you up. Easy peasy for you. Okay. And conversely, for left-eyed children, not so easy. And they just have to learn a different way. And interestingly, for left-eyed children, information came out in movies. So they could not read The Great Gatsby, they could watch it.
Okay.
And that's the way their brain takes in information. So if you give it to a child in the way their brain takes it in, you're winning.
Right.
You know, you just want to do it the way your brain takes it in. Right?
So this is interesting because this is one of the things that we discovered with one of my daughters. So even though they're identical twins, one is left eye dominant and one is right eye dominant. And with the left eye dominant girl, she has been struggling with reading.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand why. None of my other kids have struggled with this. She's a brilliant, smart little girl. And we've had this problem. And it wasn't until we did this test where I realized that, if she, was born in a country where, she read the opposite direction, she'd be doing fine. Yeah. But she just so happened to be born in the United States, and it goes against what her natural tendency is to do. And for me, it was a light bulb moment. I was like, I just looked at the whole situation differently. It wasn't a failure by me as a parent for not reading more to her. It wasn't that she wasn't studying, not doing enough reading in school or didn't care. All of that got wiped away. And I was just able to focus on what my daughter needs now, as opposed to what we're lacking. What are we not doing? What, and cause more stress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for me, that is, I can't even describe. It's like nectar to my ears because it just makes me so happy that she doesn't have to go through life like I did, being different, being marginalized. It's just ghastly. I don't really want any children to suffer. This is really, honestly, my passion. I just want everybody to understand each other and communicate more effectively and be kind to one another. People wrote, a woman wrote to me and said to me, I can really be kind to myself now because I understand what was going on. That is heaven. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Should we move on? Okay. So let's go to your ear because your ear is so important. You are left ear dominant. And there are a number of things here, but the most important thing is that you thrive on affirmation. If I say to you, Sunny, thank you. The work you've done has just been brilliant. You will work harder and more effectively the more I can affirm you. And if you don't get that affirmation, you can start to feel like, why bother? Nobody cares. And I can't tell you how many companies I've been into where people are trying to change jobs because they feel like nobody cares. And they don't need to change jobs. They just need to be affirmed. They're not in the wrong place. They think they are there, and they don't realize that this is what's pushing them to actually to move. And people have said to me, I want to change jobs. This is not working for me. Yeah, it's not working for you because you need affirmation. Nobody is telling you, I value you. I see you. Thank you. And so often, and I know this is a bit of a segue, but women who are not working, their husbands don't come home and go, oh, you vacuumed the house. Aren't you an angel? You made this incredible dinner. They have to keep asking, did you enjoy dinner? Did you see that I vacuumed? Did you see your clothes are all folded on your bed? They keep asking, and children do the same. Look at my pictures. Look. Look what I did. Look what I did. Look how clever I am. They're asking for that affirmation. People don't realize that this is what they're looking for. And it's so important. It is important like sunshine and water is to a plant. It is the most important thing. And to understand that right-eared people don't need this.
So what does the other side need then, Noeline? If it's not that recognition, what is it?
They just need the facts.
Okay.
So I'm your boss, Sonny. You need time off. You come in to tell me your grandmother got run over. I'm not interested. How many days do you need off?
Okay. I've had some bosses like that. I get it.
They just want the facts.
Yes.
Yeah. How long will you be gone? When we back? Great. See you. So if they don't want the emotional stuff, I'm not interested. They're only looking for the facts.
Okay.
Just the main facts. That's all they want. That's not an emotional ear. They don't need that constant pat on the back. They're looking at the books. They're making a lot of money. They're happy. That's their affirmation. It's not that they don't ever need affirmation. They just get it a different way. Let's put it that way. Yeah. They're not getting it from people who are service orientated and putting themselves out there in the world. And I mean, when I say service orientated, vacuuming the house and cleaning is also a service. So they are trying so hard to get that affirmation. And that right-eared person doesn't need it and doesn't give it. So many of the businesses, the top guy is right-ear dominant. And the people, all his management staff are not getting that affirmation. And so I just said to him, so easy, such an easy fix. Just build it in. Just give affirmation to your staff. Do it as a default setting, just in case they're left-ear dominant and need it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, well, they don't, but just in case. You won't lose your staff. You won't have such a massive turnover. And certainly for children, I mean, this is huge. I remember I'm left-ear dominant, and when teachers gave me affirmations, I worked my ass for them.
Yep.
And teachers who said you're going to amount to nothing, well, that was the end of it. I would never work for them again. I didn't care about the subject because that's my profile. I cared about the affirmation. So not you, I know, we're talking about you, but that's not you, but it is me.
Yeah.
And that's the point. We're different. Yeah. We're motivated by different things. Okay. But that's really important about your ear. That's the most important thing to know.
Okay.
You are a very, very good communicator. You're chatty. You're wonderful. The leg tells us about how you take action. And you really like to dance. You like to move. You're not somebody who wants to sit at a desk morning to night. It's not your thing. And that's another thing that I really would love teachers to know about children.
Oh, yeah.
They're trying to put them at a desk and they can't understand why they don't want to be there. Well, I can help you understand why they don't want to be there. And if they are like that and they're getting bored, because those children get bored easily, left leg children want variation, go let them run around the playground for a little while and bring them back, even if it's not break time. Let them run and come back. They'll be back. They want to do well. They want to be good. They don't want people to be cross with them. But you've got to understand how to make that happen for them. Or make them do 5-star jumps, or just turn it up, change the situation for them, because they can't be still. There are others that can be still, marvelous, lovely. They don't need that. The left leg children need it. They love it if they say, go to the office and fetch me a, oh, yay.
They're best for errands. Teachers love those kids for errands. Go to the office and do this, or go to this teacher and do that.
Yay! Let me do it. Yeah. There's something else I wanted to pull up here, which is such an important thing. There is a particular profile, and it's not you, but there is a profile of a child who is so sensitive to humiliation and being laughed at that they won't go back to school if this happens to them. They would rather never go back ever again. So teachers need to be aware of that particular profile, because they pull out that child to read aloud in class or make them go to the board and write something on the board. It is like death to that child. There is a child that has that profile. It is the very worst thing you could possibly do. You could do it to another child like you, water off a duck's back. You don't get it right, well, Tapia, no, we'll live another day. But there are children that will just never live another day, won't go back to school, are tortured by that. So it's so important to know who can manage that, who can't manage that. We don't want to do this to our children.
Right.
We don't want to humiliate them. Nobody wants to be humiliated, but there are some kids that, no problem. We can all laugh. Other children, that's a serious problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You are a leader. You are a born leader. And this does continue under stress. You are somebody you can get knocked over. Yeah, you get back up. You dust yourself off. You are driven. You don't need to be pushed. You are driven. And if you do have difficulties, you will overcome them because you have that capacity inside yourself. Alternatively, there are others, the receptive personalities, that are not like that. They quit when they can't go forward. They choose the path of least resistance. And as an expressive, you might want to shake them and go, just try harder. Nope, it's not in their. They're not in their makeup. They pull inside when they're frightened. They don't come out fighting. They go in. And sometimes when you have children like that, they don't tell you what's going on because they're trying to process the stuff on their own. They think they can fix it on their own. So again, if you understand that, then you can start to work with that and go, hey, I can see you having a problem. I'm here when you're ready to talk. You can't push because the more you push, the more they disappear.
Yep.
You've got to be able to go, I'm here when you're ready. And I'll understand. I won't judge anything. You can talk to me whenever you're ready to talk to me. And then slowly maybe they'll go, well, somebody bullied me at school. How, when? 3 weeks ago. See, they've been sitting with it for a long time because they thought they could fix it themselves. Yeah?
Yeah.
Not you. This is not you. You're much more outgoing, much more verbose, much more, you're managing your situation and you like action-oriented output. You get very bored with just talking about stuff.
Very true.
Let's see what happens to you under stress. So something the important thing under stress is under stress, your non-dominant side of your brain switches off, which is your right brain. Right brain is switched off. And that governs your ear, your hand, and your leg. And so your listening under stress isn't great. No, this is not this is not a time to talk to you when you're stressed. No. Your eye is working, so you can be getting in texts, emails, no problem. But talking to you under stress, not so good. Your ability to talk under stress isn't so good. So if I catch you off guard and we're having an argument, that isn't your best moment to say the things you really mean to say.
Oh gosh, this is so revealing to me, Noeline. I don't like confrontation. I really don't. I run from confrontation. It's not because I'm not like a scaredy cat or anything. Oh my gosh, it's like I get heart palpitations or something. It is, or like if I see like videos online where someone's being roasted or, you know what I mean? Like embarrassed or something, like I can't even watch them. Like any of the Project Veritas stuff where they try to catch people and have a microphone in their face. Oh my gosh, it totally freaks me out. I'm like, I can't do that. And I was like, why am I like that? I just, because I can't process it. I don't want to be around it. So that was so revealing to me when you told me that. I'm like, makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you walk away and you go, I could have said, why didn't I say? What was the matter?
Next time I'll say ... That's
Exactly.
so
It's
true.
absolutely exactly right. And that's really important to know. Yeah, because now you can actually prepare. Yeah. Or you can say, when you find yourself in that position, I understand what you're saying. I need time to think about this. That gives you an out. You need to find a way to give yourself an out so that you can prepare. I'll come back to you. Yeah. I hear you. I come back to you. I'm not sure how I think about that. I'll come back to you. So if we can sidestep it in a way that you can actually give yourself some time to calm down and think, you can come back with some really good information.
Yes.
But off the hook, not so good. And again, exactly what you said about your leg. Your leg is a sidestepper, likes to sidestep trouble or run. And so, we don't do confrontation. And again, if you understand that, you say to yourself, look, I'm not good in this situation. This is not good for me. I'm not going to be able to do what I need to do here. I hear what you're asking. Let me think about it. I'll come back to you. And that way, you don't have to, you giving yourself the time to think. Yeah.
So helpful.
Yeah. Oh, so many times I've been caught off guard, and I also don't speak under stress, and I have to say, gosh, that's an interesting question. So giving myself time to switch back on.
Yeah.
Where is my brain?
Let me go have a pillow fight with someone. I'll be back in just a bit.
Yeah.
Let me go on the elliptical for a little bit. Get a little exercise then. I'll get back to you in just a bit.
Absolutely. It's not a joke. That's absolutely right. It's absolutely right. And then, okay, so now we understand how you process and how you behave under stress. And let's think about what are strategies. And I think this for me is so important. I really want to stress this and help parents understand this. And not only parents, we all make each other feel how we're feeling. It is such a thing. It is so true. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. They were really down and really tired. And I came off that conversation feeling really down and really tired and deflated. And we make each other feel like we're feeling. And I really need people to understand that, particularly your children. So when your children are making you feel angry, don't get into the dance. Check yourself. How is this making me feel? And if it's making me feel angry, then let me deal with how you're feeling. Why are you feeling so angry today? What's going on? Let's talk about that. And if you're too young to talk about it, let's go and have a pillow fight on the bed, because in a moment we'll all feel better. Okay. So sorry.
You have some very active doggies at your place.
So sorry. I don't know how to mute myself.
How do you mute the dogs? Is there a dog mute button?
Help me. Gosh, sorry. In a moment it'll all calm down. Sorry.
Don't be stressed, because then your brain's going to function differently, right?
No stress. Brain. I know. Okay, things will return to quiet in just a minute. Okay. All right, so that's that. So we're looking at coping strategies. We need to now start looking at how do we understand what we're seeing. So there are some children who overreact under stress. Or even adults. I'm not saying just children. We overreact under stress, and it's a really small thing, and there's a huge explosion, and you kind of go, "Huh? That doesn't make sense." And that's because in that particular profile, that aspect actually just overreacts and is oversensitive to something small. We need to then be addressing the stress, because we now know that person's been sent into their profile. They're over their threshold. Let's cope with the stress and not what they had the meltdown about. And that's why it's so important for us to understand this information, because we can communicate better if I can understand why you're having a hard time. There was one time my husband and I are driving along, and he's really picking a fight with me, and I'm not switched on, so I'm fighting back, and then I suddenly go, oh, hang on a second, hold on, this is not about this. This is about something that's upsetting him. And I go, oh, hang on, what's making you feel so angry? What's going on? And it completely switched it. It's complete, I'm just having a bad time because, and then, okay, that makes more sense. Now we can talk about this.
Yep.
Yeah. And honestly, this is happening with everybody all the time. And at the moment, people are under so much stress, they'll come home and pick a fight because they want you to know how they're feeling. And instead of going into the fight, you go, wow, you've had a hard day. Talk about it. Tell me what happened. Yeah. Don't let's get into this fight about this, because this is not what this is about.
Yeah.
And I think that is essential for people to understand.
So, Noeline, how young can someone be to do a profile on them? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if we could have this available as soon as possible for children, and I don't know what that age is, but where first of all, they know it, so they can, they memorize it, so they know their bodies and know how they react to other things. But then everything we already talked about, school, but employment, all this kind of stuff. And it's not that we're not trying to trap people and put them in a box, but once you know what, some of the things you're more susceptible to, then you know how to combat it and how to deal with it. That's really the point of doing this, not saying, oh, you're this way, so you always have to be this way. That's right. Not what we're talking about here. But if we know the things that we need to work on and how to change things, then we become so much more powerful. So back to my original question, which is, how young can we do this with kids?
Okay. So I would say 5 years old is about the youngest we need to. I know that in the past, in Russia, apparently they profiled babies, so they knew how to stream them, who were going to be the athletes, who were going to be the ballerinas, who were going to be the engineers. I don't think that's necessary. I think 5 years old is, there are a lot of the people are starting school, or that's the time that you want to kind of understand them. You can profile through a surrogate. So if you were with me, and obviously if I'm doing it this way, I can profile at any age. It's just not necessary to know what your 3-year-old is. I just don't think it's necessary. But from 5-year-old, I think it's important. And something I really want to explain is I don't tell young children their profiles.
Right. Because
they, and I made this mistake with my own children, so I can tell you this, they will tell you for the rest of their lives they can't do it because, no, yeah, that's not exactly. It. But don't make the same mistake.
Yeah.
So I don't tell young children. I tell the parents, I tell teachers, people who are coming into contact with that child, if you understand this, you're away. You've got a heap of information that you will really help you to communicate effectively, teach effectively, be kind. It's just the most marvelous thing to do. But I'd say 5-year-old is your starting point. And then for kids who are making decisions about careers, this is useful. You want to set yourself up in a career that you're not going to set yourself up for disappointment. We want to play to our strengths, not, we don't want to fail. I mean, I had this with my son. He kept trying to do things that I knew his profile wasn't going to manage. And as a parent, I had to just step back and go, okay, give it a go. And then when it didn't come out, I'd go, well, don't worry. It's only because, and we went through his profile, this is not who you are. I knew this was not going to work, but I wanted you to experience that.
Yeah.
It didn't work. And he did it again. He tried something else. And I went like, okay. Give it a go. I knew it wasn't going to work. It didn't work. He came back and went, let's talk about this. What happened? Why didn't it work? We went through it. And he went like, okay, so what do you think I should be doing? And I told him what I thought he should be doing, and that's what he's doing. Because I want him to play to his strengths. I want him to be, doing the things that make him happy. Yeah. And make him think that he is wonderful. I want him to feel that. So, yeah. And my daughter too, it's about playing to your strengths. What happens to you when you're stressed?
Well, I can tell you that getting the reports on both of my girls was very eye-opening for me. And for those of you watching this, even though not a lot of people may know about this yet, or if they do know, maybe they're not willing to do it for the whole class, you could still do this for your son, your daughter, do this for yourself, and then have that information. One of the things that I was planning on doing is not sharing it with my daughters for the very reason that you said. I don't want them to come back and be like, Mommy, I can't do that because my profile is such and such. We're not going to play that game. But giving it to their teacher. Now, I don't know how open the teacher is going to be with this information. But especially if we're having some issues at school, they could look at this and maybe they'd be more open to looking at it and saying, oh, well, maybe this is worth exploring based on what we have here. So we can take the initiative. We don't have to wait for everyone else to agree with us, or is this right, or whatever. We can start this process. Yeah. And then, hopefully more people will, participate. If it resonates with you, it definitely resonated with me. And, again, my girls are 9 years old. It didn't take a long time. Noeline was able to do it fairly quickly. And then we just went over the results. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much more sense. And now I can use that when we're not communicating, or when there is some blockage or something happening. And I can go, oh, well, maybe this is it. And then it's one more tool in my tool belt that I have as a parent. And then, like I said earlier, all the stuff that it totally rang a bell, even with my own profile. So I give myself a little bit more grace now when I can't remember certain things, or someone's talking to me and I'm under stress. I'm like, stop it. I can't right now, send me a text or whatever. Or, whatever the situation may be. Right. Now, one other question I was going to ask Noeline. So we're all different as humans, right? We all have different things. So one person could, someone could listen to this interview and go, oh my goodness, let's say that's an employer or, a teacher. Like, oh my gosh, now I have to know the profiles of all these kids and blah, you know what I mean? Their heads might explode a little bit. So while this information is good to know, and this is why I think we need to advocate for ourselves, because if we know who we are, then we're not relying on other people to try to figure out the situation for us. We can advocate for ourselves. Yeah. But do you have any advice for someone that might be listening and going, gosh, that sounds really good, but wouldn't that make my job a heck of a lot harder? So this employee needs this kind of motivation and this person needs this. Do you have any insight on that?
Yes, I suppose so. So let me start off by saying that the thing that I want most of all is to be able to train people to put this into in every aspect of life. Mm-hmm. So to train celebrants to be able to offer this to people who are about to get married. And I'm coming back to your question in a second.
Sure.
So that we can actually be able to offer this to people from childhood through to companies, to marriages, to relationships. There just isn't a place where it's not valuable, in my view. I know I'm biased, but this is my view. And I think that yes, I can hear what you're saying about a teacher thinking, oh my goodness, now how am I going to know this? Isn't this going to make it more difficult? No, it makes life so much easier because I can get the best out of you. As an employer, you can be my absolute star employee if I only give you the information you need in the way that you take it on. So I helped a company build, they would keep, and this is quite a funny story, because they would keep sending me their sort of short list of people that they wanted to employ. And I would profile those 5 people, and I would tell them which one was going to be the right one for their job, and they would take that one on, and that was great. And then occasionally they didn't really feel like spending the money on me, and they would just pick the person that they thought was going to be great. Mm-hmm. Not a good idea. That person lasted 3 months. It cost them so much more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much more than just paying me to profile those few people. Yeah. Which was honestly was really an easy thing to do. Yeah. So actually it makes life easier knowing who you are than as a teacher trying to guess. Some teachers will say, look, I figured it out by the end of the year. Yeah, but wouldn't it have been easier had you known it right at the beginning? You know? It makes life so much easier. It doesn't make life more difficult. And yes, if I've got many employees, in any case, I'm looking after my employees if that's my job. If I'm your manager, then my job is to look after you. And if I can do that the best way possible, and if I've got 2 of you fighting, if I can know each of you, I can help you to resolve this in a way that, look, that person's just not listening when you're shouting at them. They're listening to your tone of voice, so please don't shout at them. They will respond a whole lot better. I think if we do this, we can work this out better. I think it'll make life much easier, not more complicated.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, getting to know, right brain, left brain, all of that stuff is one thing, but then we don't even think about all of the fights that never happened or the issues down the road that you knew how to deal with it. So, I mean, that's an excellent point. And who knows what kind of complications that could cause. That could lead to many other things that are just unforeseeable. But if you have this information in the beginning, then you can deal with it the right way. So 100%.
And Sunny, in marriages, we often find the opposite person, which actually means the opposite brain profile.
Okay.
And that's very appealing initially because you think, oh, that person, completes me. Nice, lovely. However, when it comes to communication down the road, it means that we communicate completely differently. We see the world completely differently. And so is that going to be fun? No, that's when the trouble's going to start. Because you might tell me far too much information and I'm the person who just wants the bottom line. So I will keep interrupting you. And I'll go, can you just tell me what the story's about? Can you just stop talking so much? And then you'll go, you always stop me talking.
Right. Yeah, the one book they have you read, like they did with mine in pre-marriage counseling, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. That was way too simplified. That is not reality, guys. Okay. It is not that simple. Men are this way, women are that. No,
it's
not at all.
Like that at all. And I mean, they also put a gender on your brain because they say, oh, men are left brain and women are right brain.
Yes.
Rubbish. Mm-hmm. Absolute nonsense. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've met as many right brain men as left brain women. Yeah. It's about your profile. And it's about what switches off on under stress, So that's the key. That's what makes us so different to everything else. Because I'm having an argument with you and I can't understand why you're not listening anymore.
Yeah, there's just no communication.
I'm getting more and more angry because you're not listening. No, you have to understand. I'm not listening. You're right.
And more stressed. That's what happens. See, it's all related. Oh, this is great. Noeline, thank you so much for sharing this with us. So how can people reach out to you? Are there other people that do this? Like, what's the best way? If someone's watching this, like, oh my gosh, I really want to do this type of profiling, what's the next step for them?
Okay, so yes, they can contact me. You've got my contact details. And I can luckily now see people all over the world, which is marvelous. There are very few of us around. My teacher is in South Africa. She does travel the world. She is an educator, so she has a slightly different take on it. She's very, very focused on schools and education and doing things in her way. I've taken it and I've used it really across the board. I just feel like it needs to be everywhere. Yeah. And I would love to work with people who are already in corporates, for example, who are doing coaching. This is a lovely thing that we can do together because you can help on all the strategies moving forward if you know this information up front. So I think we can work together. I'm super excited about it, and I would love to train people all around the world to be able to offer this to their schools, to offer this to people who are starting relationships, permanent or, marriages.
Yeah, it's so
I just think that everybody needs, again, if you have a brain, this is good.
Everyone watching has a brain, so this applies to you guys. Thank you, Noeline. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing this great information. For all of you watching, Real Talk is available as a podcast, and you can subscribe to it for free through your favorite podcasting apps. You can also visit unitednetwork.tv or download our network apps on iOS, Android, Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. I'm Sunny Galt. This is Real Talk for the real world.